My name is Martha R. Fitzwater. I'm 30 years old, and at that moment, I trusted two people more than anyone else in the world: my boyfriend, Cole Bennett, and my best friend, Marissa Lane. By midnight, I would lose both of them. The rooftop terrace looked exactly how I had imagined it. Fairy lights hung between potted olive trees. The city glittered below us beneath an indigo sky. Jasmine mixed with the smell of grilled food, and a small group of our closest friends filled the tables. I had planned everything. That was what I did. I planned careers, vacations, finances, futures. For 4 years, I had imagined building mine with Cole. I found him near the railing, looking down at his phone. "Hey," I said, slipping my arm around his waist. He turned and smiled, but something about it felt forced. "Having fun? It's nice." His gaze drifted behind me, toward Marissa. I ignored the small knot forming in my stomach. Cole had been distant for weeks. His phone was always in his hand. Sometimes I caught him smiling at messages, then locking the screen when I came close. Whenever I asked, he said it was work. I believed him because love can make suspicion feel like betrayal. Dinner passed in a blur. I barely tasted anything. I kept watching Cole laugh at Marissa's jokes, more animated with her than he had been with me all evening. Paranoia, I told myself. This was my boyfriend. That was my best friend. Finally, dessert disappeared from the table. I stood. Conversation faded. Several friends quietly lifted their phones. I adjusted my glasses. The first chords of Cole's favorite song began playing. Marissa had remembered. Cole looked up. "Martha, what are you doing?" Everything I had rehearsed vanished from my head, so I simply walked to him and lowered myself onto one knee. The entire table gasped. I pulled out the velvet box and opened it. The diamond caught the fairy lights. "Cole," I said, my voice shaking. "You're my best friend, my favorite person, and the man I want to build my life with. Will you marry me?" Silence. 1 second. 2. Then Cole laughed. Not happily. A short, nervous, almost embarrassed laugh. "Martha." My smile froze. "Get up." "What?" "You're embarrassing yourself." The rooftop seemed to tilt beneath me. I was still kneeling. Cole stared at the ring with something close to pity. "Did you seriously think I'd say yes?" Nobody moved. "We've been growing apart," he said. "I can't do this." My voice barely worked. "Why?" His expression hardened. "Because I'm in love with someone else." The words emptied the air from my lungs. "Who?" Cole looked past me. "Marissa." I turned. My best friend stepped forward. She couldn't quite meet my eyes. Then she walked beside Cole, and his hand found hers. My stomach twisted. "You?" Marissa whispered. "Martha, I'm sorry." Cole wasn't. He looked almost relieved. "Marissa makes me feel alive," he said. "You just plan everything. Everything with you feels like a blueprint." A blueprint. My loyalty. My stability. Every future I had tried to build. He turned all of it into an insult. I looked down at the ring. Then I closed the box. The tiny click sounded impossibly loud. I stood. No yelling. No crying. No questions. I looked at Cole once, then Marissa, and walked away. By 2:17 that morning, Cole's belongings were packed into 6 boxes by my front door. I blocked his number, then Marissa's. I contacted a locksmith and changed every lock. Finally, I messaged our mutual friends. "Cole and Marissa are out of my life. Do not update me about them. Do not mediate. Do not bring messages from either of them. I need space." I sent it. Then I turned my phone completely off. The ring was still in my pocket, but the future attached to it was dead, and I had no intention of resurrecting it. The first few weeks after the rooftop blurred together, I moved into a new apartment on the other side of the city, somewhere Cole had never lived and Marissa had never visited. It was clean, modern, almost painfully neutral. No photographs, no shared furniture, no memories hiding in corners. That was exactly what I needed. I worked from home. I went to the gym until my legs shook. I learned how to cook for one person without accidentally making enough food for two. At night, the silence still hurt, but at least it belonged to me. The anger never disappeared completely. It just changed shape. Instead of screaming, it became fuel. One morning, I was halfway through a brutal treadmill session when my phone buzzed on the console. Unknown number. Martha, we need to talk. My chest tightened once. I knew immediately. Cole. I kept running. Another message arrived. What you did was cruel. You just walked away. You humiliated me. I actually laughed. He had rejected my proposal in front of everyone, admitted he was sleeping with my best friend, and somehow I had humiliated him. The phone buzzed again. Please answer. Then. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. Then the real version came. You pushed me toward Marissa. You were always planning the future. You forgot about what we needed right now. She was just there for me. I slowed the treadmill. There it was. The rewrite. My loyalty had become pressure. My stability had become neglect. Marissa's betrayal had become emotional support. And a calculated affair had become something that just happened. For one moment, I stared at the messages and wondered how I had ever loved someone capable of explaining cruelty that way. I typed one sentence. This number is being blocked. Then I blocked it. No argument. No defense. No closure. Cole had already given me closure when he laughed while I was on one knee. 2 months after the rooftop, I finally started feeling human again. The new apartment had pictures on the walls. I bought an absurdly comfortable chair for the corner of the living room. I perfected a decent chicken curry. I could go several hours without thinking about either of them. Then Lena called. Lena had always been one of Cole's closest friends. She defended him through almost everything, which meant there was no reason she should have been contacting me. My first instinct was to ignore it. Instead, I answered, Martha? Oh my God, you actually picked up. I'm working, Lena. You have 30 seconds. She inhaled sharply. It's Cole. I said nothing. He's a mess. Still nothing. This thing with Marissa is a disaster. That got my attention, though I hated that it did. Lena rushed forward like she was afraid I would hang up. Marissa is insanely jealous. She checks Cole's phone. She gets angry whenever he talks to women at work. And she lost her job last month, so now Cole's basically paying for everything. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. It wasn't satisfying. It was predictable. The relationship they had described as passion was already turning into control. Then Lena's voice softened. He misses you. I closed my eyes. No. Martha, listen. He knows he made the biggest mistake of his life. No. He cries about you. He keeps saying you were the only person who actually understood him. You two had 4 years together. That has to mean something. It meant something to me. Lena went quiet. I continued. It stopped meaning anything the second he decided to humiliate me publicly while standing beside my best friend. He was confused. No, he was comfortable. What? He thought I would still be there when the excitement wore off. Silence. That was the truth neither Cole nor Marissa understood. They hadn't expected me to disappear. They expected drama, fighting, begging, maybe even competition. Instead, I had removed myself completely. Lena tried again. He just wants one conversation. No. You don't even want to hear his apology? I already heard his explanation. That was right after everything happened. And it told me everything I needed to know. She sighed. Martha, people make mistakes. An affair is a mistake. Publicly humiliating someone you've been with for 4 years is a choice. Doing it with her best friend is another choice. Lena had nothing to say to that. I looked at the clock. Your 30 seconds expired a long time ago. Martha, don't contact me again. I ended the call. Then I blocked her. I sat there for several minutes afterward, waiting for some rush of revenge or satisfaction. Nothing came. Cole and Marissa were falling apart. A few months earlier, That news might have felt like justice. Now it just felt irrelevant. Their fantasy was collapsing because fantasies usually do when real life arrives. And for the first time, I understood something that frightened me with its simplicity. I no longer wanted Cole to regret losing me. I wanted to stop caring whether he did. A year after the rooftop, I would discover I had finally gotten my wish. Because one afternoon, in a cafe I almost never visited, I looked up from my coffee and saw him standing directly in front of me. Exactly 1 year after the rooftop, I was sitting in a cafe waiting for a colleague named David. I had deliberately chosen a place I almost never visited. Minimalist furniture, uncomfortable chairs, excellent espresso. Nothing sentimental about it. I arrived 5 minutes early and was scrolling through emails when a shadow fell across my table. I looked up. Cole. For a second, my brain recognized him before my emotions did. He looked different, thinner, tired. His hair was messier than I remembered, and the confident energy he used to carry around like a spotlight was gone. He looked older somehow, even though only a year had passed. Martha. I placed my phone face down. Cole. He pulled out the chair opposite me. I didn't invite him to sit. He sat anyway. You look good, he said. I said nothing. The silence made him uncomfortable almost immediately. He rubbed his hands together and looked toward the window. I didn't know you came here. I usually don't. He nodded. Then he took a breath. I owe you an apology. I waited. Marissa and I broke up. There it was. The real reason he had approached me. I took a slow sip of coffee. Cole stared at me, apparently expecting surprise. She cheated on me, he continued. Still nothing. 2 months after we got together officially. His voice cracked slightly. I didn't find out until later. She was seeing someone from her old job. Then there was another guy after that. The irony was almost too perfect. The woman he had described as adventure had apparently continued searching for new adventures. Cole leaned forward. She used me, Martha. The second I was actually available, everything changed. It was like the excitement disappeared. I thought about what Lena had told me months earlier. The jealousy, the phone checking, the arguments. I already knew enough. But Cole seemed desperate to confess the entire collapse. I was too embarrassed to tell anyone, he said. I kept pretending we were fine because I knew what people would say. He looked directly at me. What you would say. What would I say? He blinked. I don't know. I told you so. Something like that. I set my cup down. Why would I? His face tightened. Because you were right. I haven't thought about whether I was right. That answer seemed to hit him harder than anger would have. He leaned back. Martha, come on. I'm serious. You expect me to believe you never thought about us? I thought about what happened. For a while. His eyes softened as if he heard hope where there wasn't any. So you did. I thought about betrayal, humiliation, trust. I stopped thinking about you specifically a long time ago. His expression collapsed. For several seconds, he just stared at me. Then the sadness hardened into anger. That's bullshit. I raised an eyebrow. You loved me. Yes. You wanted to marry me. Yes. You can't just turn that off. I didn't. He leaned forward. Then what are you saying? I kept my voice quiet. You burned it down. The cafe seemed strangely silent around us. The woman who got on one knee that night loved you completely. She trusted you. She trusted Marissa. You both knew exactly what I was planning, and you let me do it anyway. Cole looked away. You could have stopped me before I proposed. His jaw tightened. You could have ended things privately. Martha, you chose an audience. He swallowed. You wanted a moment. No, I didn't. You laughed. That stopped him. I continued. You laughed while I was kneeling there. His face went pale. So no, Cole. I didn't switch off 4 years of love like a light. You destroyed it in one night, and I spent months learning how to live without it. He stared down at the table. I made a mistake. No, You made several decisions. I know that now. That's good. He looked up quickly. Does that mean? No. The word came out gently. That seemed to hurt him more. I'm not angry anymore, I said. That's the part you're not understanding. His eyes filled. You really don't care? I care that it happened to me. I don't care what happens between you and Marissa now. He shook his head. You've become cold. I almost smiled. No. I became unavailable to people who hurt me. At that moment, I saw David enter the cafe. He spotted Cole, hesitated near the door, and looked toward me. I gave him a small nod. Then I stood and picked up my jacket. Cole looked up at me. I've built a new life, I said. You don't have a place in it. Not as my boyfriend. Not as my friend. Not as someone I need updates about. His sadness vanished. There it is, he snapped. You're heartless. I slipped on my jacket. I'm glad I didn't marry you. I looked at him for one final moment. So am I. Then I walked toward David. I didn't look back when Cole's chair scraped violently across the floor. I didn't turn when I heard him curse under his breath. A year earlier, walking away from him had felt like dying. This time, it felt like leaving a cafe. And that was how I knew he was finally gone. What I didn't know yet was that 6 months later, on a mountain hundreds of miles away, I would kneel again. Only this time, the man standing in front of me would give me an answer that changed everything. 3 months after the cafe encounter with Cole, I met Samuel Hayes. There was nothing cinematic about the first moment. No rooftop lights, no carefully chosen song, no instant certainty. We met at a rock climbing gym because David invited me to join a small group one Saturday morning. I almost canceled. Work had been exhausting, and spending my weekend strapped into a harness while strangers watched me fail at climbing walls sounded miserable. Then Samuel walked over while I was struggling with a knot. You're making that much harder than it needs to be, he said. I looked up. Tall. Dark hair. Calm eyes. An amused smile that somehow didn't feel mocking. I specialize in making simple things unnecessarily complicated. He laughed. Then we're going to get along. Samuel was a landscape architect. He designed parks, gardens, and public spaces, which meant he understood something I immediately respected. Good things took planning. When I told him what I did for work, and jokingly admitted I had a habit of organizing everything 3 steps ahead, he didn't roll his eyes. He said, "That sounds useful." 2 words. That was all. But I remember them because Cole had taken that exact part of me and turned it into evidence that I was boring. Samuel saw it as a strength. We started climbing together. Then coffee afterward. Then dinner. Nothing moved quickly. I liked that. He never demanded explanations about my past, but he noticed when certain things made me tense. If his phone buzzed repeatedly while we were together, my eyes would sometimes drift toward it before I could stop myself. One night, he noticed. You can ask, he said. Ask what? Who keeps texting me? Heat rose into my face. I wasn't... Martha. His tone wasn't defensive. It was gentle. My brother. He's trying to convince me to help him move a couch tomorrow. He handed me the phone without hesitation. I pushed it back. You don't have to prove anything. I know. That answer stayed with me. He wasn't offering transparency because I demanded it. He was offering reassurance because he saw that something inside me still expected betrayal. A few weeks later, I finally told him about Cole and Marissa. Not every detail. Just enough. The proposal. The laughter. The affair. My best friend standing beside my boyfriend while I was still on one knee. Samuel didn't interrupt. When I finished, he sat quietly for several seconds. Then he said, "That was cruel." No lecture about forgiveness. No suggestion that maybe Cole had been confused. No attempt to tell me the pain had made me stronger. Just recognition. It made me question myself for a long time, I admitted. What part? The planning. The stability. Whether I suffocate people without realizing it. Samuel frowned. Wanting to build something with someone isn't suffocating them. I looked at him. It is if they don't want the same thing. Then they should tell you. Simple. Almost painfully simple. That was what had been missing with Cole. Honesty before destruction. As the months passed, Samuel and I developed our own rhythm. Some weekends we climbed. Sometimes he dragged me to nurseries while explaining plants I would immediately forget the names of. I made spreadsheets for our road trips. He teased me about them, but then followed every itinerary. Our arguments were boring. Beautifully boring. If I was upset, he asked why. If he disagreed, he said so. Nobody disappeared for 3 days. Nobody flirted with someone else to create jealousy. Nobody weaponized silence. There was no constant emotional earthquake masquerading as passion. For the first time, I understood that peace could have chemistry too. 6 months after I had walked away from Cole in that cafe, Samuel and I planned a hike into the mountains. The trail was longer than either of us expected. Granite rose around us, broken by pine forests and stretches of wild grass. The air became thinner as we climbed. Samuel kept reaching back for my hand whenever the trail narrowed. By late afternoon, we reached the summit. The world opened beneath us. Mountains layered into the distance while the sinking sun painted the sky orange and violet. Samuel stood beside me, staring across the valley. "It's incredible," he whispered. I looked at him instead. The quiet joy on his face. The steadiness. The man who had never once asked me to become smaller so he could feel bigger. My heart began pounding. Not with dread. With certainty. Hidden inside the pocket of my hiking pants was a small velvet box. I had carried one before. But this time, it didn't feel like a lead weight. It felt like possibility. Samuel turned toward me. "You okay?" I smiled. "Yeah." Then I reached into my pocket, and for the second time in my life, I prepared to get down on one knee. For one strange second, standing on that mountain with the wind moving through the pines below us, I saw the rooftop again. Fairy lights. Phones raised. Cole laughing. Marissa stepping forward. The old memory flashed through me so quickly it almost felt like someone else's life. Then Samuel looked at me, and it disappeared. I lowered myself onto one knee. His eyes widened immediately. "Martha." I pulled the velvet box from my pocket and opened it. The ring was simple. A raw-cut diamond set into a clean band, understated and strong. I had chosen it because it reminded me of him. Nothing performative. Nothing excessive. Just real. Samuel's hands rose toward his face. His eyes were already filling with tears. There was no audience around us. No carefully timed music. No friends holding phones. Only the mountains, the wind, and the two of us. "Samuel," I said. And surprisingly, my voice didn't shake. "You came into my life when I had finally learned how to be okay alone. You never tried to rescue me from that. You just made being with someone feel safe again." He covered his mouth with one hand. I smiled. "You never treated my planning like a flaw. You never made my loyalty feel boring. You showed me that peace doesn't mean something is missing." His eyes closed for a second. When they opened again, he was smiling. "You are my peace," I continued. "And somehow, you're also my adventure." He laughed through the tears. That mattered to me, because this laugh wasn't cruel. It wasn't disbelief. It was joy. I took a breath. "Samuel Hayes, will you marry me?" He didn't hesitate. "Yes." Then louder. "Yes. Absolutely, yes." He laughed again and pulled me to my feet before I could even finish breathing. I slid the ring onto his finger. Perfect fit. Then he wrapped his arms around me and kissed me while the sunset burned orange and violet across the mountains. For a long moment, I forgot every bad thing that had led me there. Not because it had never happened, because it no longer controlled the meaning of this moment. A year and a half earlier, I had believed Cole's rejection proved something was wrong with me. That I had planned too much, loved too seriously, wanted too much certainty. Now I understood the truth. Those qualities had never been the problem. I had simply offered them to someone who didn't value them. Samuel did, and that changed everything. Later, while we sat on the warm granite watching the last light disappear, Samuel turned his hand back and forth, staring at the ring. "You planned this whole hike around proposing, didn't you?" I smiled. "Maybe." He laughed. "I knew there had to be a spreadsheet." "There were 3. "Of course there were." Then he leaned his head against my shoulder. "And I love that about you." Such a small sentence. But something inside me loosened when he said it. Cole had once looked at the way I loved and called me a blueprint. Samuel saw the same thing and called it something worth loving. That was the difference. Months later, I heard through David that Cole and Marissa could barely stand each other anymore. Their affair had turned into accusations, jealousy, and resentment before finally collapsing completely. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need them. Their ending wasn't part of my life anymore. When someone eventually mentioned that Cole had heard about my engagement, I felt no urge to imagine his reaction. No revenge fantasy, no satisfaction. Nothing. The strongest revenge I ever got was becoming completely uninterested in whether he regretted losing me. Sometimes people expect healing to end with forgiveness or reconciliation. Mine didn't. Mine ended with distance, with boundaries, with choosing someone new without dragging the old betrayal into every room. The first time I got down on one knee, I thought I was asking someone to complete the future I had already designed. The second time, I understood something better. A future isn't something one person builds and another person agrees to inhabit. You build it together. That evening, Samuel and I started hiking back down the mountain hand in hand. No applause followed us. No phones recorded it. No dramatic audience watched. And that was exactly how I wanted it. The past wasn't standing behind me anymore. It wasn't even smoke on the horizon. It was gone. And for the first time, the life ahead of me didn't feel like a plan I was desperately trying to protect. It felt like something we were going to build together,